It was a Wednesday afternoon when Aishan noticed it. Subtle, quiet, unassuming, but undeniably there. The ring was missing from her finger. Not any ring. The ring. The gold band he had given Aliyah on a rainy August evening 6 years ago, under a flickering streetlight, after stammering through the clumsiest marriage proposal in the history of South Asia. That ring had never left her hand since. Not during fights. Not during pregnancies. Not even during the operation when she had insisted on keeping it on, even after the nurse warned her about swelling fingers and possible complications. But now, on an ordinary Wednesday, it was gone. At first, he didn't ask. He told himself maybe she took it off before cooking, or maybe she was cleaning, or maybe she was getting it polished. Yes, that's probably it. But then Thursday came, and it was still gone. Friday, still gone. By Saturday, it wasn't the ring that was bothering him anymore. It was what wasn't being said about the ring. Aliyah didn't even mention it, didn't acknowledge its absence. Not once. That silence made it worse. They had been married for 6 years. He knew her moods, her sighs, her silences like old songs. And this silence, it wasn't the kind that comes from peace. It was the kind that comes from secrets. Aishan sat alone in the dimly lit living room, the soft hum of the ceiling fan the only sound accompanying his racing thoughts. The absence of Aliyah's ring had become a silent scream in his mind, growing louder with each passing day. He recalled the early days of their marriage, the laughter, the shared dreams, and the promises whispered under starlit skies. How had they drifted so far from that blissful beginning? Determined to find answers, Aishan began observing Aliyah more closely. He noticed her frequent late-night phone calls, the way she would quickly end conversations when he entered the room, and the guarded look in her eyes when he asked simple questions. One evening, as Aliyah stepped into the shower, Aishan's curiosity got the better of him. He picked up her phone, hesitating for a moment before unlocking it. Scrolling through her messages, he found a thread with a contact saved as M. The conversations were cryptic but intimate, filled with inside jokes and late-night confessions. His heart pounded as he read a message. "I miss our talks. Can't wait to see you again." Aishan felt a surge of emotions: anger, betrayal, sadness. He placed the phone back, his hands trembling. When Aliyah emerged from the bathroom, she found Aishan staring blankly at the television. She sensed something, was off but chose to remain silent. Days turned into weeks, and the distance between them grew. Aishan became more withdrawn, and Aliyah, sensing his coldness, became defensive. One night, unable to contain his turmoil, Aishan confronted her. "Who is M?" he asked, his voice steady but cold. Aliyah's eyes widened, a mix of surprise and fear flashing across her face. "Just a friend," she replied quickly, avoiding his gaze. "A friend you can't wait to see again?" He shot back, his voice rising. She remained silent, the weight of her secrets pressing down on her. Aishan stood up, his eyes filled with pain. "I thought we had something real, Aliyah. But now, I don't know what to believe." He left the room, leaving Aliyah alone with her guilt and the echo of his words. The nights had grown longer, not because the clocks changed or the seasons shifted, but because silence had now taken root in their home. A silence that didn't bring peace. It brought weight. It brought tension. It screamed into the quiet like an unseen wound, bleeding beneath perfect skin. Aishan barely spoke. And Aliyah, she had stopped trying to bridge the gap. That night, the city lights flickered through the curtains, casting fractured shadows across the bedroom wall. Aishan sat at the edge of the bed, fingers laced, staring into nothing. Aliyah lay behind him, curled into herself, wide awake. "Eshan," she said softly. He didn't turn. "I never meant to hurt you." He gave a small, bitter laugh. "Funny. Thing about hurting someone. You never have to mean it. You just do." Silence. Then Aliyah whispered, "Do you want to know the truth?" Eshan slowly turned his head, not fully facing her, but enough to let her know he was listening. She sat up, her voice barely holding itself together. "It started last year. During your business trip to Malaysia, remember? The one where you missed our anniversary?" Eshan flinched. "You forgot." "And I pretended it was okay, but it wasn't." Her fingers twisted in the bedsheet. "I felt invisible, not unloved, but unimportant, like a fixture in the house. You'd come home, say hello, eat dinner, fall asleep, day after day. And I kept telling myself it was just a phase. That work stress would pass, that you'd come back to me." She looked down, but I got tired of waiting. There it was. Not the affair, but the moment before the affair. The reason, the crack, the breach. Eshan sat frozen, fists clenched. "Who is he?" he asked finally. "A colleague, from the gallery. He used to bring coffee, stay late to help set up exhibits. At first it was just talk, but talking turned into texts. And then..." Her voice broke. "And then you gave him your words, Eshan," said his tone flat. "The same words you used to give me?" Aliyah closed her eyes. "Yes." A single tear ran down her cheek. It wasn't physical, not really. Once, just once. And I stopped it. I ended it. Eshan stood abruptly, the chair scraping against the floor. "Once is enough." She nodded. "I know." He paced the room, rage battling heartbreak. Every time he looked at her, flashes of memories surfaced. Her smile under Eid lights, her laughter in the rain, her sleepy murmurs during cold mornings. He looked at the woman on the bed, and for a moment, she was a stranger. "I gave you everything," he said, voice shaking. "I gave you a home, a life, my loyalty. And when I was breaking my back building a future for us, you were giving your heart to someone else." "I'm sorry," she said. "No, you're not," he snapped. "You're just sorry you got caught." Aliyah stood up. "No, I'm sorry I let go. Of us. Of you. I should have talked to you, screamed at you, shaken you awake. Anything but what I did." She walked toward him, slowly. "But I'm still here. I didn't run. I didn't lie when you asked. I'm trying to fix this, if you'll let me." Eshan's eyes glistened, but he shook his head. "You don't fix a cracked mirror by taping it back. You replace it." She looked devastated. "But people aren't mirrors. No. They're worse. They break each other, then beg to be forgiven." And with that, he walked out, not just from the room, but from everything. 2 weeks later. The apartment felt colder now. Eshan had moved in with his cousin temporarily, told people it was work stress. Everyone believed him, except his mother. "What's going on between you and Aliyah?" she asked one evening. Eshan tried to brush it off, but she didn't budge. Finally, he told her. Everything. To his surprise, she didn't react with anger. No dramatic gasp, no curses for Aliyah, just silence. And then, calmly, she said, "Do you love her?" Eshan looked at his mother, startled. "That's not the point." "It is," she said, "because love doesn't die when it's wounded. It dies when it's forgotten." He stayed quiet. His mother looked him in the eye. "You think she's the only one who ever got tired in a marriage? I was your father's second choice for years. I knew it. But I stayed. I stayed because love isn't always fair. It's a choice, one you make every day." Eshan left that night with too many thoughts and not enough clarity. Meanwhile, Aliyah had started therapy. At first, she didn't go for herself. She went because her sister begged her to, but by the second session, something cracked open. I was so angry, she told the therapist. I wanted to be seen. And he just stopped seeing me. She spoke of the loneliness, the guilt, the shame. How do you forgive yourself for a choice that destroyed someone else? She asked one day. And the therapist replied, You don't. You just learn to live with the consequences of it, and try to become someone who never makes that choice again. Alia nodded quietly. Then came the day of the final closure. Ashan texted her, Can we talk? Her hands trembled as she read it. He came over late in the evening. The house looked the same, yet everything inside it had changed. They sat across from each other like strangers negotiating peace after war. Don't know if I can ever trust you again, he said. I don't expect you to, she replied. Not yet. Then what are we doing? I'm asking you to give me the chance to earn it back. Not by saying sorry. Not with gifts, but with time. With truth. He looked at her, not just her face, but her posture, her voice, her eyes. And he saw it. She was broken too, and still standing. Why did you take the ring off? He asked. Alia smiled sadly. Because I didn't feel worthy of it. Ashan nodded slowly. Then, after a long pause, he reached into his pocket and placed the ring in front of her. I don't know if we'll make it, but if we do, I want you to wear this. Not because you've earned it, but because we both need to remember how much it cost us to lose it. She looked at the ring, then at him, and for the first time in months, hope flickered in her eyes. It had been 4 months since Ashan handed the ring back, not as a symbol of forgiveness, but as a symbol of patience. They weren't living together again. Not yet. Ashan still stayed at his cousin's apartment, and Alia remained in the old, flat alone. But now, there was a rhythm to their silence, a conversation beneath the quiet. They met once a week, never more. Sometimes they sat across a coffee table, sometimes in the car with music low and unspoken thoughts louder. And sometimes they didn't talk at all, but every week he came, and every week she waited. It wasn't reconciliation. Not yet, but it was something else. Rarer, maybe harder. Reconstruction. One Thursday evening, Alia surprised him. I've been writing, she said. Ashan raised an eyebrow. Writing what? She smiled nervously and handed him a notebook. Letters. To you. He hesitated, then opened it. Each page, dated. Some pages full of words. Some just 1 or 2 lines. You smiled at me once today. It felt like spring in December. I made your favorite doll. It felt weird eating it alone. I hate that I made you smaller in order to feel bigger. You look tired today. I hope your dreams are better than your days. I saw your old hoodie in the closet. Smelled like you. I cried for 40 minutes. He closed the book slowly. Alia. She looked at him, tears hanging in her lashes. I know I broke something. In you, she whispered. But every day I'm building something in me to hold that guilt, so it doesn't spill, so it doesn't drown you anymore. He didn't speak. Because what do you say when someone shows you their wounds and says, Here, hold them with me? Weeks passed. Spring arrived, and with it, a wedding invitation. Alia's younger brother Irtiza was getting married. The entire family would be there, including Ashan, and people would talk. That night, Alia called Ashan. You don't have to, come, she said quietly. I will, he replied. We were always strongest when people were watching. She smiled, but there was hesitation in her heart. The day of the wedding came. Alia wore a soft ivory sari, simple, elegant. Her ring, the same forgotten ring, now proudly on her finger again. Ashan wore a navy sherwani, the same one he wore at his own wedding, on purpose. When he walked into the hall, heads turned. Whispers spread, some with pity, some with judgment, some with amusement. She took him back. Men are so weak sometimes. I bet she'll do it again. But Eshan held her hand, anyway. Not for show, but because he wanted to. At the photo booth, someone muttered under their breath, "Some women get away with everything." Aliyah heard it, and for the first time, she didn't look down. She just squeezed Eshan's hand. He looked at her, pride quietly blooming behind his eyes. Later that evening, while everyone else was dancing, Aliyah and Eshan sat on the terrace under strings of yellow fairy lights. She turned to him. "Why are you really here, Eshan? I mean, still?" He didn't answer immediately. He looked up at the sky, then at her. And then he said, "Because every time I imagine life without you, it feels like standing in an empty house full of memories. I don't want a life of just memory, Aliyah. I want new stories, even if they're hard, even if they take time." She cried then, not because she was sad, but because he had said the exact thing her heart had always prayed he would, 1 year later. They renewed their vows. No stage, no decorations, no audience, just the two of them, on a boat ride near Shanpur, the sun setting behind ripples of gold on the river. Aliyah wore no makeup. Eshan wore no watch. Time didn't matter that day. She held his hand and said, "I don't promise never to make mistakes again. I promise I'll never hide them from you again." He replied, "I don't promise I'll forget, but I promise I'll never throw it back at you as a weapon, not even when I'm hurting." They both smiled, eyes glassy. There was no priest, no officiant, only love and forgiveness. And the kind of peace that comes not from avoiding storms, but from surviving them together. Epilogue, Aliyah once asked their therapist, "Do people ever really recover from betrayal?" The therapist smiled. "You don't recover from betrayal. You grow from it, like trees growing around barbed wire. The pain becomes part of the shape, but it still grows, still lives, still blooms." Aliyah wrote that in her diary the night they moved back in together. Right beneath it, she scribbled, "I don't want to go back to the love we had before. I want to build something braver than that.